Well, boys and girls, the decade is coming to an end, and in that decade, many amazing horses stepped foot onto tracks all over the world. So, with this list, I will be going over my 10 personal favorite horses from this decade. Now, like the other lists, this is my personal opinion, and this isn't a who would win in a horse race of sorts kind of list. This is about my favorite horses that I enjoyed watching the most. So, as like the other lists, there's going to be a lot of personal bias and a lot of nostalgia flowing through my veins. So now that you understand what this list's criteria are, let's get into this list. At number 10, we have Altior. Now, there are plenty of great jumps horses that ran this year, like Quavega, Cortostar, Denman, Undisco, and many more, but the one that I watched the most was definitely Altior. Now, I think it's pretty simple why he gets the edge. It's because I have just watched him more than any other jumps horse. It's that simple. He's one of the few jumps horses that I've watched that I regularly get excited to watch, and I actually try keeping up with his races. And you don't really see that with me when it comes to other horses. I wasn't old enough to regularly watch Cortostar's races, and I never really watched any other jumps horses races at all. I really enjoyed watching him run and win race after race, and that's why he gets on here. At number 9, we have Animal Kingdom. Now, with a lot of other horses that are going to be on this list, their sheer skill and ability is what makes me really like to watch them a lot. But Animal Kingdom isn't exactly like that. I really enjoy Animal Kingdom because, well, he introduced me to the Kentucky Derby, because, well, he won the first Kentucky Derby I ever watched, and he introduced me to the Dubai World Cup, being the first Dubai World Cup I decided to watch. So, he was a horse who introduced me to all these amazing races that I now watch on a regular basis, and I just couldn't be more thankful for Animal Kingdom to do that. And besides, a Kentucky Derby and Dubai World Cup winner is incredibly admirable, especially a horse who has won Grade 1 races on the synthetic and the dirt, and has been Grade 1 placed on the turf. It's a very admirable horse, and I can't help but love Animal Kingdom even more for that. At number 8, we have Blue Point. Now, Blue Point is one of the few turf sprinters that I've watched that I've really enjoyed watching. A lot of turf sprinters just kind of come and go every year and have one really lucky race, and then just never show any sort of talent after that. Because, well, sprinting is all about speed, so you don't always need talent to win it. But when you want to be an amazing sprinter, you need talent. And I just can't help but love a horse like Blue Point. He's able to win big sprint races like the Alquat Sprint, but then came the King Stand Stakes. Now, he won that race, and I thought that was pretty impressive, but then I saw he was ready to run on the Diamond Jubilee, and I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. A horse hasn't really won 2 Grade 1 races in less than a week, in like forever. Is he going to be able to make history and do the King Stand Diamond Jubilee double? And honestly, it was something that I never thought was possible ever. So my heart was racing as I came down the stretch. Was I going to watch history in front of my eyes? My heart pounded. I was like, come on, just one more furlong, just hang on. And when he crossed the finish line first, it was an amazing feeling just seeing a horse make history in front of my eyes. At number 7, we have California Chrome. Now, California Chrome is a horse that really gets high on this list for the simple fact that I've watched him more than most other horses. I watched him when he won the San Felipe Stakes back in 2014, and when he won the Kentucky Derby, and I even watched him in person win the 2014 Preakness Stakes. Then I had my heart crushed that he lost the Belmont Stakes, and then he was just kind of unproductive, and he faded from my memory. I didn't think that he was going to come back. I just thought that he kind of just fell from grace. But then he came back in 2016, and it was amazing just to see him come back and win the Dubai World Cup. And then I got to watch him in person again win the San Diego Handicap before winning the Pacific Classic and Awesome Again Stakes. Now, although he again ended his career in defeat with the Pegasus World Cup, which prevents him from getting into the top 5, I still have plenty of good memories watching this horse, and that definitely outweighs the bad. And as well as that, he's a horse that I've watched in person more times than many other horses. I don't think I've watched many horses run twice in person, and both times they were great. Let me just tell you that.
A perfect season is awesome again in the awesome again. Dortmund ran.
At number 6, we have Wise Dan. Now, Wise Dan is similar to California Chrome in that I have watched him race for quite a while. Originally in 2012, when I watched his Breeders' Cup Mile win over Animal Kingdom, I wasn't exactly a big fan of him, but when I saw him run in the 2013 Woodford Reserve Turf Classic, I became a fan, and I began to watch him regularly. Then I watched him win the Manhattan Handicap, and, it just kept going and going. I eventually watched him in the Breeders' Cup Mile. I enjoyed him then. I just liked his ability to consistently win at a mile, as well as his nice, beautiful chestnut coat. And later figuring out that he was actually a Grade 1 winner on the dirt with his win in the Clark Handicap. And I kept watching him until his final race when he won the Shadwell Turf Mile. And I was actually quite happy that he got scratched from the Breeders' Cup Mile in 2014 because I didn't want him to go out in defeat. I just wanted him to go out as a winner. And that's what happened. I'm glad that they retired him when they did, and I can't wait to see him go into the Racing Hall of Fame in the future. Especially because now that he's been retired for about 5 years now, he'll actually be eligible in 2020. So I can't wait, and I hope that he gets in. I really do, because Wise Dan is a great horse, and I gotta love a horse who's a 2-time Horse of the Year, especially a 2-time Horse of the Year that mainly runs on the turf. You don't get that every day, now do you?
Wise Dan, brilliant in the mile. Saw approval was second, Silencio was third, close fourth, possibly Silvermax.
At number 5, I have Gunrunner. Now, similar to Wise Dan, Gunrunner was a horse that I didn't initially like, but slowly warmed up to, mainly in that I just kind of thought that after he would win the Louisiana Derby, he would just kind of fall into obscurity because most horses who win at the fairgrounds don't really amount to anything afterward, as harsh as that sounds. But he proved me wrong when he won the Clark Handicap, a race I did not expect him to win. Then as a 4-year-old, he did way more than I expected, and it was amazing just seeing him reach the top. He'd start with the Stephen Foster, then the Whitney, the Woodward, the Breeders' Cup Classic, and then he'd reach the top, the Pegasus World Cup. And it was amazing just seeing him just reach the top, and then in an amazing heart-racing finish, hold off West Coast and win. And it was very satisfying to know that he got to the top and decided to retire at the top rather than just race him until he got bad. It's something you don't see every day, and that's why I got to admire him for that. It's amazing seeing just horses reach the top. It's a feeling that never gets old.
Out a winner! He's the Horse of the Year, and he's Gunrunner with an unforgettable...
At number 4, I have Justify. Now, Justify's career is simple, short, but sweet. In less than 6 months, he went from a maiden to the 13th Triple Crown winner. Now, while that does mean that it's hard to really get attached to Justify, because during his racing career, he only ran 6 times in a span of less than 6 months, so it doesn't really give you much time to get attached, it still was an amazing racing career, and I remember enjoying watching him win race after race, and just show what kind of horse he was, making history as the first Kentucky Derby winner since Apollo to not race at age 2 and then win the Kentucky Derby, and then best Apollo by being the first Triple Crown winner never to race as a 2-year-old. So that is impressive, but with the fact that a Triple Crown winner had happened only 3 years prior, it meant that winning the Triple Crown wasn't nearly as impactful as, it could have been. But regardless, Justify was still a great horse, and it was fun watching his short but great career.
Justify! The Kentucky Derby was never in...
At number 3, I have Beholder. Beholder personally has a really special place at number 3, simply just because I've watched her for years. I've watched her longer than most horses. I remember having the 2012 Breeders' Cup caught on tape, and, I just pop in the old racing tape, and I'd watch some races, including the 2012 Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. And that's where, I hear the announcer going, "This is Beholder." And I was like, that's a cool name. I can remember that. And then I remember watching her win the race, and I was like, she's cool. She has some potential. Then in 2013, I remember her losing to Princess of Silma, and I was like, she ran a good race, but just wasn't enough. And then I remember her winning the Breeders' Cup Distaff, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. She came back and won. And then after a pretty mediocre 4-year-old season, I kind of forgot about her until she came right back as a 5-year-old winning the Pacific Classic. Then I was like, okay, this is a great filly. This is a filly with some talent. And that's when I really began to love Beholder. And that's kind of when I got kind of bummed out when she began to slow down and lose race after race at the age of 6 to Stellar Wind. And I was like, come on, Beholder, just dig in deep one last time. And that's why I was so anxious just to see her win one last time in the 2016 Breeders' Cup Distaff against the Hotshot Songbird. In my mind, I was like, I really want her to win, but she probably won't. Songbird will go on and remain undefeated. And that's when I just was like, oh my god, is Beholder gonna do it? Just down the stretch, my heart was racing, my brain was all over the place, I just was everywhere. And then as they hit the wire, Beholder comes back at the age of 6, defeats the Hotshot, goes out as a champion. It's an amazing story. At number 2, we have Winx. Now, Winx is very simple. It's the greatest winning streak that I've ever watched in my life. Now, obviously, there are winning streaks that went bigger than hers, such as the ones done by the Puerto Rican runners, such as Camarero and Galgo Jr., but when it comes to a winning streak that I actually was able to watch happening in front of my eyes, I never, ever saw anything like Winx. Most winning streaks I watched were snapped right around the 10 race mark. They never got any further than 19 straight races. And it was finally just so satisfying to see a horse that could go past 20 races, even go past 30 races, and just be so invincible. It's so satisfying because of just how often undefeated winning streaks are just broken at the most inconvenient times. So seeing such an invincible horse like Winx, it's amazing. You get a thrill every single time, just watching that winning streak continue to climb further and further and further. It's an amazing feeling, and I'm impressed that Winx was able to give that amazing feeling for so long. It was thrilling to see her win 16 straight races, let alone 34. So, she has a special place in my heart, and honestly, when it comes to, my list of probably, some of the best racehorses of all time, Winx would definitely be up there. There aren't many horses like her that can keep a winning streak for just so long and amaze me for almost 5 years. But even her winning streak isn't enough for number 1. Before we get to number 1, I might as well list a couple honorable mentions that weren't quite good enough to make it into the top 10, but I think I might as well mention Arrogate. Now, if Arrogate's career had ended with him winning the Dubai World Cup, then he most definitely would have been put on this list. But because he went on to run in the San Diego Handicap and just fell from grace so hard, it's amazing just to see him run in such amazing races as the Dubai World Cup and then just come crashing down so hard. I just can't put him on the list for that. Goldakova. Now, Goldakova is a horse that is quite talented in my opinion, but she doesn't make it onto this list because I just don't have any real memories with her. The only memory I really have of her is her winning the 2010 Breeders' Cup Mile and then losing her final race in the 2011 Breeders' Cup Mile, which definitely soured my opinion of her, seeing her just fail in her final start. Zenyatta. Now, I do recognize that Zenyatta is a talented filly, but the only memory I have of her is her losing the Breeders' Cup Classic. And if all I have memory-wise is a really, really bad memory of her, why should I put her on my favorites list? It just doesn't make any sense. But now it's on to number 1. Number 1 is American Pharoah. Now, while I did go into plenty of detail about how him winning the 2015 Triple Crown was amazing to watch and something that I never expected to happen ever in my life, there is more that I like about American Pharoah than just that. Mainly after the Triple Crown. He seemed like he was gonna go undefeated. You know, he won the Haskell easy peasy, but then the Travers, he got upset by Keen Ice. So now you have this redemption arc where he comes back, sets a track record, and manages a grand slam. It's an amazing thing, you know? You win the Triple Crown, you feel invincible, you lose, you kind of get taken down a bit, but then you rise back up. It's an amazing story arc, and you don't get that a lot with horses. A really nice theatrical story arc. And that's just something that I gotta love about American Pharoah. Just how storybook his life is. And honestly, if there was an American Pharoah movie, I'd watch it, because his life is a movie. It's very theatrical, and I just gotta love every second of it. And that's kind of why 2015 was one of my favorite years of horse racing. It was just amazing, all thanks to this one great horse. I just gotta thank American Pharoah for giving me tons of great memories of him just cruising down the stretch in the Kentucky Derby, the Preakness, the Belmont, and then, finally, the Breeders' Cup Classic. As Larry Colmus says, a horse of a lifetime. And that perfectly encapsulates American Pharoah. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Comment down your favorite horses in the comment section below. And I'll see you guys next decade. Goodbye, guys.